I'm with Dr. James Fazio here at the Shepherds 360 conference. Dr. Fazio, you spoke about dispensationalism. The question I have for you is a lot of people think that dispensational thought came from John Nelson Darby or C.I. Scofield in the 19th century. What are your thoughts on that question? Where did dispensational thought come from?
Well, it essentially came from the Apostle Paul.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Paul who talks about it in Ephesians chapter 3. The dispensation of the grace of God was entrusted to him. It was given to him for the Gentiles.
Yeah.
And he holds that in distinction from the dispensation of law. He doesn't use that language there, but elsewhere in Galatians, we're not under the law, but we're under grace. So there's a lot of language that the Apostle Paul uses about dispensations. In Ephesians 1:10, he talks about the dispensation of the fullness of times when God will wrap up all things in Christ.
Right.
So the idea, absolutely, we see presented in the pages of the New Testament. However, when you talk about its discovery and unfolding in terms of a framework for understanding history, that came much more in the Apostolic Fathers. It came in the early centuries of the church, trying to make sense of the New Testament writers, understanding a framework for history, where it came from, past, what God did with Israel, what God promised through Abraham, what God did all the way back to Noah and earlier, and what God will do in the resolution of things in the fullness of times.
Right.
And so we see a lot in the writings of the early church, framework of history that's divided into successive eras, some numbering as few as 4, others as many as 7.
Now, you mentioned Isaac Watts. What did he contribute to dispensational ideas?
Yeah, the hymn writer, he was post-millennial, so he did not have a future dispensation of the fullness of times. And that was a key distinctive that would set him apart from many of the other forerunners. So he was looking at history past in a very similar framework of 6 dispensations leading up until now. But of course, because he saw the church as a fulfillment of the kingdom, he did not have a future dispensation. Right. But what he contributed was it showed the continuity, along with others who wrote before him and would write later, that they understood history according to a philosophy of God's successive dealings with man.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that helpful clarification. Appreciate you.
All right, thank you.